This episode of Legends, the series, is brought to you by these fine companies.
Where I am today, as to where I was in my younger years, my reputation, I'm probably not necessarily proud of what I have to live with. I mean, it is what it is, and I was who I was, but I mean, today, now talking about all the, the fights and the squabbles and all of that stuff, trust me, I never punched as many people as I get credit for. But I mean, I've had my scraps. The biggest thing was I didn't take any crap off of anybody. I mean, you're not going to back me in a corner and back me down. And even still today, I'm that way. But in today's times, you're going to have to be careful or you'll end up with lead poisoning.
Were you born a natural born badass, or how did that whole toughness cultivate in you?
I've thought about that a lot. I've thought, what made me the way I was, the way I am? What made me who I am today? What was that? All I can really come up with is my dad was pretty bad. I mean, not bad as in badass. Right here where I live, there's a lake right across the street. I grew up, we used to go to that lake, all the time in the summertime. And we lived about 45 miles south of here. One night we're going home from the lake and this guy's tailgating my dad. I don't know, I'm probably 12, 13 years old maybe. And this guy's tailgating my dad. My dad pulls over, and the guy rolls down his window and my dad walks back there and I said, "What are you tailgating me about?" And the guy made some remark and boom, my old man hit him and knocked him clear across the other side of the car. And I go, "All right, Dad, that's good." Got in the car and drove away. My dad never took any crap off of anybody. He used to tell me, he says, "If you start a fight when you go to school, you're going to get your butt kicked when you get home. If you walk away from a fight, you're going to get your butt kicked when you get home." So I had no choice but to defend myself. Not necessarily start it, but I had to defend myself.
And what happened if you got beat up?
I don't know that.
What did your dad tell you if you did get beat up?
It never went there, because to this day, I've never had a full-on ass kicking. I mean, I've been lucky. There's probably a lot of guys, for sure there's a lot of guys that could kick my ass. But growing up through the years, I never crossed that guy. When I was a kid growing up, I lived 45 miles south of where I live right now. My dad, they used to have a little circle track down there, a little dirt track. In fact, it's still there. And they used to race midgets and jalopies back in the day. And my dad used to take us out when we were kids to those things. Billy Volkovich Sr. used to live in Fresno and he raced there. And as a little kid, probably 7, 8 years old, I would go out there and I'd get so excited when we'd go to those races and watch those guys and Volkovich and all the guys that raced out there. I mean, and that was circle racing. But I remember the adrenaline rush that I got from that as a kid. And so that sort of, I think, probably set me in a direction. My dad, he never raced anything, organized. Him and my uncles, they'd get new cars and they'd go out on the back roads and they'd race to see who was the fastest. They would do that. My dad had a boat, and that's leading into how I got started, is the boat right here at the lake where I live now. This boat had a blown Cadillac engine in it. Well, my dad was a hot rod at heart, and I mean, we lake raced. I mean, we come up here and, you know, and race all the guys at the lake. And that's, you know, one thing led to another, and then as the story goes, and probably most of the people have heard the story before, how I got started by taking the engine out of my dad's boat when I was 15 years old and putting it in a rail. And he was okay with that, and that was my very beginnings, was right there.
Why a rail as opposed to a full-bodied car?
That's a good question, because the people that Shirley and H.L. Shahan lived down the street from me. And I mean, like, I was 15 years old. Shirley's I think about 4 or 5 years older than me. But H.L. and Shirley lived down the street, and they had a 57 Chevy that they raced. And H.L., him and a couple other guys, there was an old rail that these guys had that was sitting out there. And HL, they were racing the 57 Chevy, and I don't know, that old rail was sitting out there, and we said, well, let's put the engine in that. I had the Badakian brothers who raced Altereds and you know, coupes and what have you, and they ran on fuel. So I was as far as building stuff and putting engines and stuff, I was familiar with, you know, I learned how to do that, you know, with Badakians. Jack Badakian's my very good friend to this day, and he still runs an Altered. But I never, growing up, I never had a hot rod street car. I never raced on the street. I got started with that rail, and that's where I stayed.
Yeah, that's a pretty good sugarcoating for some guy that thought you had to be tough to run a rail, right?
Well, endurance, you know, I mean, my success in my entire life, I would have to say, is endurance. The toughness, not the toughness as to kicking somebody's ass, but the toughness to stand and to go follow through and do what you have to do to make it happen.
A lot of people don't realize you were a very successful top fuel driver long before you climbed behind the wheel of that McDonald's car. I tell the story, you know, when I started out, and I mean, I worked my way into top fuel, and my brother and I built, after I moved to Oregon, my parents moved to Oregon, my brother and I built in the shop, the farm shop, a top fuel dragster. It was a blown Chevrolet top fuel dragster. And we welded the thing together. We built the entire car in the farm shop. Well, and my brother was going to drive, because I really didn't have any desire. I really didn't care about driving. My brother was going to drive it, and I was going to tune it and work on it. Well, but I had driven quite a bit prior to that, and so I'm going to shake this thing down, and we go out to Woodburn, Oregon, to that racetrack, and we go down there, and the second run on the car, I crashed the car and totaled it. That ended my brother's driving career and set us back a little bit. But then I got hooked up with Jim Albrecht and the guys at Columbia Racing Engines, and I bought a Kent Fuller car, Kent Fuller chassis, and had no desire to drive. I was just going to be part owner. I'd own the car. Columbia Racing Engines owned the engine, and we were going to, you know, whoever drive. In fact, Bob Haynes was supposed to drive the car, and we've put the car together, went down to Long Beach to get Bob. We were going to run. When we got there, he says, I'm driving Larry Stelling's car. Oh, well, who are we going to get? Well, Dave Jeffers came up, and Dave drove the car, and this was in 1965. And Dave Jeffers started driving the car. He came up, he flew up north to a couple of races, and the car ran well. I mean, it was a good running car, beautiful car. We're coming back from a race one day, and Albrecht says to me, he says, we can't afford
to fly Jeffers up here, pay him percentage, and we can't afford this. So either you're going to have to drive or I'm going to have to drive. And I told Albrecht at the time, I said, you drive. I really don't want to drive. Well, he went home, came in on Monday, and he says, I'm not going to drive, you're going to have to drive it. And I said, well, let's go down to Woodburn and make a couple of passes, and I'll tell you if I can or if I can't. And we went down to Woodburn and says, made some runs, and I says, I can do this. And this would have been probably April. There used to be a Drag News top 10 eliminator list. And to be if you were on the top 10 list, you could challenge the number 1 listed car. And it was his choice. If you were going up, it was his choice where you raced and when you raced. Pete Robson from Atlanta, Georgia he held the number 1 spot. We're in Portland, Oregon. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. We were number 6 on the list. We says, let's challenge for the number 1 spot. So we put a challenge in to Pete Robson, figuring that we were going to have to go to Atlanta on his turf to run. Never been further than California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, maybe Arizona. That was it. And we're going to have to go to Atlanta, Georgia. He called and he says, is there a racetrack out there that would pay for this? Al Beachel ran Woodburn Drag Strip. Al Beachel was a good friend. I called Al up. I said, would you pay him what he needs to come out here to do this? I said, sure. So it was set up. Pete Robson came to Woodburn, Oregon, June 13th, 1965. Now, mind you, I only started driving this car probably in April. So, I've only got a few races under my belt in this car. Pete Robson comes out June 13th, 1965, and we beat him 2 straight. And that was probably the first time that anybody, or the first time that my name came out as to, where anybody would pay any attention to it, because all of the manufacturers, all the ink that we got from that, boom, here it is. But that deal only lasted till the tail end, not even till the tail end of the years, and we parted companies, and I went my direction and I ran my own Top Fuel car. I was with Terry Majors for a while. It was from 65 to 69, it was sort of hit and miss running Top Fuel. Again, I was working on the farm for my dad. We couldn't make enough money in a Top Fuel car. I wanted to race. It's my passion. This is what I want to do. My dad thought it was all good, in the early days when it was fun. When he saw that I was taking it serious, my family didn't like it very much.
A Barracuda body machine driven by Ed McCulloch. Mr. Ed's 2-speed refuses to shift. And
I didn't want anything to do with funny cars. I'm a dragster guy. I don't want anything to do with those other guys. Well, Art asked me if I would drive the car, shake it down, and help him get started driving. So we went to Eugene, Oregon. Never been in the car before. It was a terrible feeling. There was one of the old cars that had the roll cage all out and around, and you're sitting here and, there's nothing around you, the round steering wheel, and it was a terrible, terrible feeling. We won the race. Well, that set the stage again. So in 69, Art Whipple and I, he had the funny car, Terry and I had the dragster, so we would book the 2 cars wherever we could book them together. I drove both cars in 69, and the end of the year, we sold all of our stuff, teamed up, and Art and I built a funny car and went on the road in 1970.
Is it true that you looked at funny car drivers as nothing more than horse jockeys that ran the Kentucky Derby? That level of toughness?
Well, yeah, they were too prim and proper, I guess you might say. I mean, not that we were dirty, but I mean, they're all, got all of their nice stuff. And I mean, I like nice stuff, but I mean, I work on the race car and I'm going to get dirty. And those guys are a bunch of wusses, and most of the drivers didn't work on the car anyway. They were just drivers. Well, that never was me. I mean, I was always engaged in the running of the car. My interest really went with the mechanical end of the car. And so funny car guys were a bunch of wusses. I didn't want to be known as one of those guys. But once I saw that if you're going to make a living doing this, you better get a funny car.
And then here comes this whole line of new breed of funny car guys. You got the Jungle Jim, who's wild and out of control, and here you have this ace guy that has a sleeveless shirt with his muscles out, that if I can't beat you on the track, I'll beat you at the finish line, right? Or that in the shutdown area.
There was a lot of that, yeah. There was a lot of that. I mean, there was a lot of, strained relationships, at the end of the racetrack. I mean, guy burn you down or, whatever, mess with you on the starting line. I mean, you're gonna hear about it at the other end.
There's Ed the Ace McCulloch in the blue car. He'll be in the near lane against Dale Poldy in the red car. This is a repeat of the pairings in the National Funny Car Eliminations held last year in Indianapolis. Should be quite a race. They're both backing up now. Buster Couch lining them up. Poldy on the outside. There they go. Poldy gets the start. But he begins to lose traction here. See the smoke coming up, and McCulloch's going to catch him. I believe McCulloch does it. He's the winner. 6.68 his time. 215.82 miles per hour. So Ed McCulloch wins the funny car division here and the $10,675 first prize money. And that's 2 in a row now over Poldy in a national championship. And here's our winner, Ed McCulloch, removing his fire mask here. He's going to be a mighty happy guy when it comes up.
We won her.
What was it like being a funny car driver back in those days? I mean, you were like bona fide rock stars, right?
We used to have a lot of fun. And I've said this many times, I'm sure that anybody that you talk to will agree. In the early days, we didn't have any money. We didn't have sponsors. I mean, we did what we did and, try to make enough money, booked in money to survive. We would match race to make enough money to go to the national events, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, we could party and, carry on and do all of the things and have fun and what have you. And then the sponsorships started to come. When the corporate sponsorships started to come, now, you're corporate apparel, and you can't do things, and you can't say things, and you just can't have. So the fun, when the money came, the fun left, in a sense. You had to have the money, it had to go there, but the fun part of it, a lot of the fun part of it went away.
Who made you more famous, Wally Parks or Bill Donor?
Well, Bill Donor. But with that being said, in the early days, being up in Portland, Oregon, or just out of Portland, Oregon, I'm a local Northwest guy. We're a Northwest car, and we go to Seattle and Puyallup, and we go to, all of those Arlington, all of those tracks around there. Well, we were just another one of the guys. Yeah, we set the national record, and yeah, we run good, but to get more than $500 or gas money or whatever to go to the race, they'd never pay us. We're a local guy. Well, that's when Whipple and I decided, what, if we're going to make this work, we're going to go on tour. So in 1971 is when we went on tour. Well, when we went on tour, it took us a little while
And again, talking about the camaraderie or the friendships amongst the people, our first race was at Rockingham, and it was an IHRA race, and we were booked in there, and that's really the only race we had. Ben Brown was the guy that booked us in there, and he was going to take care of us and get us dates. Well, he got us in there, and then we had maybe one other race and up in Detroit, and we didn't have much going on. And so we were actually over at Al Birchler's shop, and McEwen comes in. There was a period of time that we were back there, but we'd been back there for a while, and McEwen says, "How are you doing?" I says, "Not very well." I said, I guess we're gonna have to go home. He says, "Why?" So we can't, nobody knows us, and they won't book us because they don't know who we are. So McEwen got on the phone, he called the Gold Agency, Ben, Chris, Ira Litchie, he called all the guys, said, "Hey, put these in some shows, get these guys in some shows." And McEwen is the one that actually probably got us over the hump, got us some dates, helped us get some dates. And once we ran the races, then they see that we're a good running car and we can compete, and it's a clean operation and everything. Then, and our success rate, they would book us. But had it not been for McEwen coming in the door that day, I may still be farming for my dad. I don't know.
And of course, Donner jumped right on it, right? He was an opportunist. Right?
Well, when leading into this story, once we went back east and became, successful, now all of a sudden we're worth something to Donner. We were getting paid decent money out there. Well, Donner stepped up and pay us more money to come back to the Northwest than we could make back east. So that's when the Western swing, we used to talk about it. We're the ones that's where that all started, is we'd go back east, and in tail end of June and July, we would be out here. Donner had put together like 10 races on the West Coast, and we'd come out here and run our butt off. And that, what I could make off of those races that Donner would pay us there, when I finished that, I had the bankroll to get me into next year. And so that was an important time of the year. I put enough money, I could take enough money there that I was good to get into next year. And Donner's the one that did that.
Yeah, but being with Donner also had a price. You'd find yourself in situations where, how did I get myself into this and how am I going to get out of it?
Well, Donner was an opportunist. I mean, he would see something. Him and Steve Evans, had the ability to, they could create a riot.
His devotion to humanity. Billy Lee really cares about people. What other track operator? Name me one track operator. When a few years back, after Jungle Jim Lieberman did one of his famous burnouts, and Donner was informed by his division director that there was a girl in the staging lanes with her hair on fire, would say, "Man, give her $50, send her down the track."
One time in Seattle, one of the deals, they had all of the cars. He says, he calls me up the tower, he says, "Here's what I want you to do." He says, "I'm going to line all the cars up out there." He says, "I want you to stay in the pits." He says, "And when we let you know, at the end of the national anthem or whatever the call was to do," he says, "I want you to fire the car, drive it down the racetrack between all the cars, turn on the return road and do a burnout back down the return road. And I'll pay you $500 extra." Well, $500 was a lot of money then. Okay, so no big deal. But looking back, I remember what it felt like, because it was sort of a stupid thing to do, but not thinking. I get in the car and I didn't have any fire suit on, I didn't have a helmet on, I didn't have anything on, and I'm idling it down, between the cars. I make the turn and I stop on the return road and I hit the throttle, and that it hurt. Just from the lack of padding from the fire suit and rattling around, my body hurt
from doing the burnout down that return road. I mean, it's that severe with nothing on. That's part of why I wear hearing aids today. But if donor wanted to do it, let's go do it.
At any rate, my Northwest National Open, we always open the season up in the Northwest with that event. I think we had a race from before it, but the really big thing was the National Open. And I would have 16 funny cars, 16 dragsters, you know, just for our own racing. And it was terrific. We'd have, you know, the Blue Max and the Snake and the Mongoose. Everybody would be up there. And I'd start running the ads way out in front of that thing, almost a month, teasing people. And one of the only times we ever used billboards around town, and everywhere you think, we advertised in Canada and everything. So one night I'm sitting in a saloon up there in Seattle, a couple of my cronies, and I'm telling them about this event. I said, boy, I mean, I got everybody. I'm naming off all these people that are coming. This is a really big race. And one of the guys, who was a newspaper guy and a pretty savvy guy, looked up from his drink and he said like this to me. He said, well, if it's such a big race, how come you don't have Linda Lovelace? I go back to Seattle, the phone rings, and a girl hollers at me. She says, you know, this gal on line one says she's Barbie Benton. And I went, wow. So I get on the phone and think it's a joke, and it isn't. Sure enough, it's Barbie Benton. And Barbie Benton's calling me from the Playboy Mansion, and she said, I understand you'd like to talk to Linda. And I said, yeah, sure, put her on. So she gets on the phone, and I said, what would I have to do to get you to come up to this car race in Seattle? And so she tells me, and it wasn't a lot. I think she won 2 first-class plane tickets for her and her guy, and $1,000 maybe. Might have been 2,000, I don't remember. And I said, let's do it. So we make the deal, and I recut the ads for a couple of the big-time radio stations in Seattle, the Rockers, and I'd say, you know, how big is this weekend's Northwest National Open? Well, Don the Snake Bernome, and on, and I name all the racers. And I said, and even Linda Lovelace is coming from Hollywood. And I sort of said around that the winner of the funny car category, which had every big slammer in the country in it, was going to get to spend the night with Linda Lovelace. Ooh, it gets tacky, doesn't it? Anyhow, if I tell you who won it now it happened, I'm risking my limb and life.
I'm guessing you don't remember anything from the National Open. That's the weekend you got amnesia, right?
I don't. When was the National Open? Well, in the early 70s, it was, I say it was good. It was good times. We were successful. Win races, booked a car, you know, and I mean, everything was okay financially. But as the time I went for quite a while through there that I didn't win a national event. I mean, we were match racing and I'd go to national events, but I mean, I won Indy in 71, 72, and was runner-up in 73, you know. And so, I mean, that was all good. I mean, in 72, I won the Winter Nationals, the Gator Nationals. I was runner-up to Schumacher at the Summer Nationals and won Indy. And I mean, there was only like 8 national events in the, you know, all year. So it was all good in the early days, and then it got harder and harder, you know, and it was getting tougher and tougher to make ends meet. And I got down, you know, like in 1978, at the end of 78, I had to make a decision. I mean, I owned some property, I had my stuff, I mean, I had bills to pay. I had to make a decision. I mean, I can finance what I've got. I can come up with enough money to run for a year. If I run for a year and can come up with a sponsorship or some means to continue on, it's good. And if I can't come up with that, I'm broke, I got nothing. And I made the decision. I says, I've made what I've made drag racing, and I'm not giving it back. So in 79, I didn't run.
And I started selling my stuff, and I sold my stuff off. And fortunately for me, I was always real close to Ed Pink. We were very good friends, and he always really took good care of me. And Ed Pink called me up tail into '79, and he says, would you be interested in driving the Super Shops car? And I said, well, what about Foster? Foster drives it. He says, you don't worry about Foster. Would you be interested in driving the car? And I said, sure.
Until Don Prudhomme came along, there was no bigger name in AA fuel funny car racing than Ed the Ace McCulloch from Fresno, California. McCulloch now going into the semifinals. Ace, were you concerned about that lane that had just been oiled down?
Well, actually, I was when I first saw it get oil, and then Gary went up there and took the opposite lane, and I questioned that, and they do a really good job cleaning it up. They run the track dryer over, so I figured it'd be okay, so we took it.
How's it feel to be back in a serious threat now?
Well, you know, what can I say? The car runs well. We'd like to be running a little bit better here, but we're not hurting it bad. We had a little problem qualifying, but got it straightened out, and I think we'll be okay.
Looks like it. Thank you, Ace.
Thanks, Steve.
That put me into the Super Shops car and won Indy in 1980 in the Super Shops car. And then the Super Shops deal folded, so the end of 80, I mean, now I'm out of a ride again. Well, in that time frame, Ed Wills had a rebar steel company. He had a steel company. And in 80, 81, I didn't really have anything to do, and so I went to work with Ed, and we formed. He had gone back east, done a deal, and he'd come back out here, and so him and I went together with him, and we opened up another rebar company. I didn't know anything about rebar. He did, I didn't. But he took me, we went in the field. I mean, we fabricated it at the shop, we hauled it out, and we placed it, I mean, in the trenches, tie-in rebar, doing bridges, doing that stuff. And hard work. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and I know what hard work is. We went along through there. I learned quite a bit. And then another friend of mine, we actually ended up, I sold out to Ed. Another friend of mine, Don Barry, has a construction company, and he wanted to do a rebar deal. So I went with Donnie, and we started a rebar deal on our own, the two of us. I've never worked so hard and gone deeper in debt as I did in the rebar business. It was the same time when the building, you know, the collapse, there was no building, construction stopped, and it was terrible. I hated it. Probably what you're referring to is, I've made this statement many times, after I got back into the real world of racing, driving down the road and see them working rebar, doing a bridge or an overpass or something, and rebar taught me how to hate. I mean, it kicked my ass, and it taught me how to hate. I hate rebar. It's terrible.
All the work is over for our funny car racers. Joe Paisano's car, driven by young Tom Ridings. He's 25 years old and a college student during the week. Ed the Ace McCulloch from Sanger, California, a professional drag racer through and through, but he also owns an industrial steel business and races on the weekends. McCulloch has been a two-time champion at this U.S. Nationals, but that was a long time ago. The final two cars out of 16, the quickest field in the history of drag racing. Finally settling it out between these two, Ed McCulloch and Tom Ridings, in the finals at the U.S. Nationals at Indy. And a bit of a hole shot, it appears, for Ed McCulloch. And unless something goes wrong, Ed McCulloch wins it.
Quickest top fuel dragster in the world at 5.48 seconds. Right next to it sits another blue car, the second quickest top fuel dragster in the world at 5.52 seconds. And they're both owned by the same man from Hemet, California, Larry Miner. Now, Larry, you've still got Gary Beck driving, but now you're driving too. How did this all come about?
Well, I've always wanted to drive one of these cars. I've driven all the other race cars that I've owned, and this winter gave us a good chance for me to get my license, and Gary worked with me, and we just planned on going to one national event, but I liked it so well, and the car's running good. I kind of got the bug right now.
I got the call from Larry Miner that they were putting together a deal with Miller Brewing Company and Oldsmobile. Holly Hedrick, who used to work for Keith Black, Holly was involved in the deal, and Holly and I were good friends. And Holly's actually the one that contacted me. And he said that Larry would like for me to come down and, bring Linda down and spend the weekend and talk about this. So we went down to Larry Miner's place. As all I knew about Larry Miner was Gary Beck won, they were won the championship. Their equipment was pristine. I mean, their truck, I mean, they had really nice stuff. Larry Miner's a very wealthy potato farmer. As all I see is brightness. Went down to Larry's, looked around. I was really surprised with the shop, what it was. It was in an old potato shed. I mean, it was, you would be embarrassed to take anybody there to, show them your race shop. I mean, it was unbelievable, how bad it was. But all their stuff was good. Larry, we had dinner. Larry says, well, let's go talk about this. So we went in the other room, sat down, talked. And he says, what would it take for you to do this? I says, well, this is your deal. What do you want to do? So he proposed to me what he wanted to do. And there was a percentage, there was a salary and a percentage. And it wasn't much. It wasn't much. And I went to bed that night with Linda. We were laying there talking, and at the time I was driving truck for Art Whipple. Art had a trucking company, and I was driving truck. And I told Linda, I says, I can make more money driving truck than this. I says, financially, this isn't that good a deal. It's not. And I give Linda all the credit in the world. That night she says, this might be your last kick at the cat. She says, if you want to try it, go for it. So I went out the next day and drove. Larry toured me around out there and talked about it. And I says, okay, I'll do it. So we made the deal. It was, Bernie Federley was the crew chief on Gary Beck's car. Billy Walter was there. So there was the three of them. It was me and Darren Capps, and that's 5 guys, 5 employed guys for 2 cars. We bought a car. I had to go to Texas. Caceres actually built the car down there, and I went down, get the car by myself, come back. I'm putting this thing together by myself. Beck lived in by Newport Beach, so he drove back and forth every day, and I was staying in a motel down there. And every now and then, Penny would say, bring Ed home, spend the night, and I'll fix dinner and what have you. So I would go over and stay at Gary's one time. But the first time I'm going over there, Gary says, what do you think about this deal? I says, well, it ain't much. So what do you mean? I says, well, the percentage, the salary's not much, and the percentage. He says, well, the percentage would be pretty good. He says, you're getting a percentage off of my car, you're getting a percentage of everything. I said, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So that made it better.
qualifying in Funny Car Eliminator at the 9th Annual NHRA Cajun Nationals Championships. In the far lane, John Collins from Long Beach, California. In the lane nearest the camera, Ed the Ace McCulloch from Sanger, California. Neither driver is qualified. Both men are concentrating, thinking only of performance, not of the possibility of danger.
So what was it, like 3 or 4 races into this deal, and then you had the crash with John Collins?
That was bad. Yeah, that was a bad deal. You know, we were building the car was supposed to be that Forenza Oldsmobile, but when they didn't have the body done, and so we painted it up like it was supposed to look. And the first race was at Baton Rouge with that new body, and actually there was moisture coming up through there was condensation coming up subbing up through the concrete or the asphalt, and a thing, you know, went out there and it got a tire, and I mean when it made a right-hand turn, I mean, if you look at the video, you take the video and slow it down, I mean, the car turns, I mean, you can see the front, I mean, I did this, but it kept going, you know, and hit Collins, and I thought, you know, it's over. And we borrowed a car from Billy Meyer until we could get another car put back together, and continued on.
What was it like the first time you actually saw the video from that accident?
Pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I was really surprised as I didn't look at the video for a long time. I didn't want to see it. I didn't look at it for a long time. But when it went out there and when I hit John, I spun around, I can remember being upside down on the guardrail going backwards. So it spun around, and I mean, I'm upside down. I remember saying, something's gonna hurt real bad. We continued on. First year wasn't that successful, but we got better as we went. And Larry is he's a hard businessman. I mean, he's a hard man. And every year, I say this jokingly, but it's the truth. Every year, Larry and I would sit down and negotiate, and we were negotiating for a pay cut. Because every year it was going to be less of something than it was before. But every year we would do better, or run more races, or win more races or something, and to where every year I made a little bit more money. And I don't remember, I think it was 85. Larry comes in and he says, we're negotiating for 80, 85, whatever year it was. He says, there's no salary. He says, I'm going to pay you a straight percentage. So what kind of percentage are you talking about? He says, I'll pay you 50%. I says, can we match race? If you want to. Can we race IHRA? If you want to. Okay.
The Funny Car Finals, Ed the Ace McCulloch, 2 California guys going after each other against Mike Dunn. John?
Ed McCulloch's on the race of his life.
Well, we won the IHRA championship. We did a few match races. We did good in NHRA. I made more money than I'd ever made in my life. Larry has, you know, he's at the end of the year, I mean, this is just ridiculous. I can't pay you that much money. But it was all good. It was all good. We were successful and made it on.
There is something about this race that over the years has always brought out the best of Ed McCulloch.
What are you most proud of your time in drag racing?
You know, that's the obvious. I'm extremely proud of the fact that I've won Indy 5 times in Funny Car. I won it top fuel. The majority of people don't look at Indy today the way we always looked at Indy as being what it was. I mean, they still try to build it as, you know, the U.S. Nationals, and I mean, it's you know, the Daytona 500 or the Indianapolis 500. That's our, you know, race. But the majority of even the guys working, when I was crew chief, even, I mean, when we'd start getting closer to Indy time, I mean, the guys, I used to tell the guys, I mean, they'd say, "What's the matter with you? I mean, you're all edgy." He says, "Listen, we're going to Indy. This is Indy. Do you know what Indy is? Yeah, it's another drag race." I said, "No, it's not. It's not another drag race. It is the drag race." And I mean, it's the mystique of the event, what Indy means to me and means to the older generation more so than the younger generation. You win Indy once is a big deal. I mean, I won Indy, my driving career in funny car from 1970 was the first national event that I went to until 1992, okay? And I won Indy 5 times. Forrest just tied that last time he won. And I mean, it's taken him 40 years, you know, to do it. So I mean, it was a long string. It was a good string. But I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the wins that I've had it in. I mean, every event, you know, I'm proud of. But Indy is the ones that you remember.
Were you ready to get out of the driver's seat when you got out?
No, not really.
Does it bother you? Does it bother you that more people know you for your right hook than winning Indy six times?
Yeah, because that's not something that I'm proud of. I mean, it was what it was. It is what it is. I am who I am. Yes, I got into scraps, you know, now and then. But to sit here and tell you, yeah, I'm really proud of this, or, you know, punching that guy or doing this or that, I'm not proud of that. That's not who I am. I'm not that guy today.
Does it bother you when people like me bring that up?
Not really, but I mean, it's not something that it's not something that I want to dwell on, I guess you'd say. I mean, I've changed a lot. I mean, I've grown up a lot. My demeanor, I mean, there's still a button you can push, but I mean, I'm 79 years old. You know, I mean, you push my button to now, I mean, it'd be a one-punch wonder. I mean, I get in a pretty good lick, but if we're going to have to roll around in the dirt, it ain't going to happen.
So, with a guy that has a reputation of being in dire need of anger management back in the day, how does one simply decide I'm not that guy anymore? How does that happen?
Time, I guess. I mean, I don't know when you become mature. It's certainly not 21. Just time and understanding, and I don't know.
And then, of course, this unrelated son of yours, Ron Capps, makes this "Don't Be a Victim" shirt.
I love Ron, and it was that he saw that picture, and you know, he ran with it, and it became a very widely sought after T-shirt. I never printed one. I've never printed them. Capps is the one that's done it all. I mean, before Pluger passed, I mean, I don't remember. I think maybe it was at Sonoma. I mean, that was their uniform of choice
at one race. The whole team had that shirt. It was what it was.
Did you want to look at him and say, son, I'm trying to change my image here?
I just laughed and rolled with it. Everybody gets a kick out of it. And I mean, if you can get a kick out of it and laugh about it, okay. To get serious about that stuff, you know.
Do you think that kind of signals the end of an era of what drag racing used to be? That kind of wild, over the edge kind of thing into more of a corporate?
Well, like I said, I've said this before, when the money came, the fun went away. When the corporate sponsorship came, you can't do the things that, you know, we used to do. Ron Capps and Whit Bazemore, Bristol, Tennessee. I mean, that's in the modern day, more modern day era. Capps comes back, and I mean, he's madder than hell. I mean, he's going to knock Bazemore's head off, right? And I said, come over here, son, sit down here. And he pleads his case. I says, if you want to get into it with Bazemore, when he gets back, take him out behind a trailer where nobody can see you and smack him. If that's what you need to do, go do it. But go out behind the trailer to do it. Don't do it in front of anybody where anybody would do it. And if they accuse you of doing it, deny it. Deny it. He walks right over into Bazemore's pit. Bazemore walks out of the trailer and he decks Bazemore. That's not behind the trailer.
When you stepped away from crew chiefing to retire, were you ready then?
The situation with that, in 2004, Linda was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I didn't know anything about the disease. I didn't know. I mean, I asked the doctors, what are we looking at? They said 6 to 10 years. Well, I'm working for Schumacher. You know, Capps, and it was the Brute car, and, you know, we're going on, and every, you know, 3-year contract, and then another 3-year contract. And it was getting, Linda was getting worse as time went on. My family was all lived out in California. We were living in Indianapolis. Linda was getting worse. I needed to move back out here where the family was. And I needed to do that while she still could do that. There were some situations going on at Schumacher's, and I just decided now's the time. I need to take care of Linda. I mean, I made a promise when she got sick that I would see it through and I would take care of her. And I needed to get her back out here, get situated, and then do what we had to do. And she made it from 2004 until September 17th, 2014. She made it 10 years. But it was difficult. I mean, I didn't really want to quit racing, but I had to take care of what I had to take care of.
So that's the toughest thing you ever had to deal with in your life?
With her, yes. It's a very, very difficult thing. My brother has helped me a lot through it. I went a long time, and I took care of her for a long time, and it was, he told me, he says, you need to put her in a home. You need to put her, you know. And I said, well, I can do it. And he says, you need to pick a date. He said, pick a time when you're going to do that. And this was like in November, probably November of 13. I says, okay, in July. And he says, why July? He says, it needs to be now. So I started looking, and I actually put her in a home in January of 14, and she passed in September. So I took care of her up until that point.
When you look at all these trophies that you have up here, she was every bit as much part of those as you were, right?
It was an ongoing joke, not joke as in joke, but funny amongst us guys. In the early days, when we were, you know, just young guys out doing what we're doing and what have you. I mean, we were all married. I mean, Lynn Perdome's a wonderful girl. Holly Beadle's a wonderful girl. Linda. I mean, all of the girls, they knew one another, but they really didn't. They knew everything that was going on, but they never talked about it. When Draw formed, those were the girls that formed the original Draw Association, was that group of girls. We used to call them that's the CIA. I mean, those girls, Beadle had a house at Breckenridge in Colorado, and they would go up there, all those girls would go up there, they'd spend 2 weeks up there skiing. Well, they became all really, really close friends. Well, now then they share stories amongst themselves, and every time they'd come home from one of the trips, you never told me about this situation with so-and-so over there. I don't know, you know, but it was funny how the women came together as friends. And I mean, I would stick up, to this day, I would stick up for every one of them. Great, great woman, because you can't do this, you can't do what we did without the support of your wife, your family. I've apologized many times to my kids about, I'm sorry that I couldn't go to the father-daughter dance. I'm sorry that I missed that ball game. I'm sorry that, you know, I couldn't go to that motocross race. You know, I'm sorry about those things that I was gone. And the things that my kids say, Dad, we know what you were doing. The reason you were doing what you were doing so we could do what we did. So, I mean, my kids don't have ill feelings about the times that we missed. I have bad feelings about the times that I've missed with my kids.
You think you'll ever be able to forgive yourself for that?
There's nothing I can do about it. That boat sailed. I love my kids. I love my grandkids. I've got great grandkids now. You know, I love my family. They've been stuck with me. I want to be remembered as a good person at heart. I don't want to be remembered as a guy that was always in a fight. That's why I say today that to a degree I'm embarrassed by some of that stuff. I want to be remembered as a good person, as a good guy. I don't want to be remembered as an asshole or the guy that punched this guy or that guy. That's not what I want my memory to be. I want people to know or to realize that you need something, I'm here. I'll take care, I'll help. I wish I could be a better person. I wish I had been a better person. But again, that ship sailed. So it is what it is, and I am what I am. I try to live my life probably a little differently now than I used to. But here we are, and this is me.